People have often asked me whether they assume being a rabbi is a very difficult job. It certainly is right now, I'll tell you that. Those were such beautiful words. And I thank you all for sharing them. The images, the pictures that it brought into all of our minds. Thank you. You know, whenever I sit with a family before a funeral, I consider it a sacred moment. A moment in which stories and reminiscences and reflections bring a beautiful combination of smiles and tears. But I have to tell you that the moments that I spent with this family yesterday brought me to an even more deeply sacred space than I usually experience. The outpouring of love and respect and admiration that I experienced from the children and grandchildren and nephews and nieces of Jarvis Francois was so incredibly beautiful and so incredibly touching. You just heard so many of those feelings. And I'd like to add my words, knowing that they can't compete with the depth of emotion, but hopefully present another side to telling the story. I want to begin in a rather strange way, unusual way, by telling you a brief story that happened to me in Israel during my years as a rabbinical student. As we were sitting and talking yesterday, it kept coming to mind as we talked about Jarvis. The context is interesting, but that's for another time. The importance is the end of the story. After I told a young man on a farming kibbutz in Israel that I wanted to be a rabbi so I could teach Torah, he asked me to hold out my hand, which of course I did. Probably shouldn't have, but I did. And proceeded to deposit a rather large clump of dirt and mud into the outstretched hand and said, "This is all the Torah you need." It took me years to get over the fact that maybe he wasn't simply mocking my particular career choice, but telling me that having your hands in the earth is a Torah all its own. And you can learn so much from the experience. For Torah has always meant to our people a way to concretize the values that we believe in, to build them into our daily lives. And farmers have a unique way of doing this in their life each and every day. Now, I know Jarvis Francois was much more than just a farmer. He was a pilot, he was a dog lover, which certainly sits well with me. He fought in the war, he was a businessman, played cards, all of the things we know. But as I talked with the family yesterday, it occurred to me that more than just being a metaphor for his life, so much of what he strove for, so much of what he and Pitsy demonstrated throughout life was in many ways a reflection of his vocation. See, a farmer needs to work hard. And Jarvis certainly knew the meaning of hard work. Taught that to his children and grandchildren, as you heard. I heard the stories of him getting up so early in the morning, of teaching his family to do the same, of having such an industrious spirit in everything that he did, not just his work, but in everything he did. He did so much of what he did in life with a passion and an energy that reflected the tremendously hard work of a farmer. He taught his children and his grandchildren and other family members the value of that hard work, and we just heard it described in ways that I could not possibly even come close to doing. An understanding between understanding the connection between the beauty of nature, the responsibility of those who farm it, and what it means to be a mature and responsible human being. Many of us, and I include myself, who grew up in the city, have an idealized vision of how a farmer lives and what kind of life they live. We've been fed that by innumerable examples of popular culture. We imagine a person of honesty, of a straightforward attitude, a person of character, a person who stands strong with values. And that was certainly true of Jarvis over and over again in his life. He demonstrated such a strong moral compass, always choosing truth, always choosing honesty even at a cost. He stood up for himself with bravery and courage when it was called for, but always with a sense of right, with a sense of morals and ethics, which he clearly has passed on to the generations that follow. Grandchildren told me stories of how he taught them to be strong and persistent And it's obvious those lessons clearly stuck with them as they grew, because he helped them to grow. And that's the third characteristic of a farmer that I call attention to this morning. A farmer needs to have a vision, needs to have a plan for the future, and needs to believe in that future. For planting, nurturing, and caring for the seeds and the fruit, and then delighting in the harvest. You, his family, are that harvest. And we all can recognize what a bountiful harvest it is. As the children, grandchildren, and nieces and nephews talked to me about Jarvis yesterday, I saw an unmistakable gleam in their eye that showed through the sadness of the moment. You see how they revered him and loved him. He was so proud of them, and they were so proud of him. They loved his humor, the way he always would find just the right things to say at just the right time. But more than that, they all realize his dedication to them, his love for them, his pride. And what was so evident was that they appreciated all that he had done and all Pitsy had done, that they had done together to ensure that the family was an inseparable unit. They clearly love and embrace each other. I have to tell you this story because it really touched me. We were sitting having this, I won't call it a quiet conversation, but this conversation around the table. And all of a sudden, it broke up. It broke up because the two great-grandchildren came in with their parents, and immediately I was sitting there at the table by myself because everybody had jumped up, hugging each other, kissing each other, greeting each other, leaving me to marvel how close this family is. And they all attribute that closeness to Jarvis and to Pitsy. He made sure his family was together for the holidays, the seders, the celebrations, and made sure they realized what a gift they had in each other. Yes, he was many things, farmer only being one of them. But that image in my mind of planting and nurturing and caring and holding in your hand the earth and all that it represents has stuck with me. Jarvis and Pitsy were an institution in Ann Arbor among their dear friends and all who came into contact with them. He was a patriarch of a strong and close family, a family which faces a future without him, but secure in knowing that their lives were infinitely blessed by his loving and inspiring presence. And that presence will continue. There's a beautiful teaching in our tradition that a farmer once taught. As those before me planted for me, so do I plant for those who will come after me. Jarvis Flansbaugh planted for those who would come after him, and his children, his grandchildren, his nieces and nephews, his great-grandchildren, his dear friends and their children and their grandchildren. More than just a love of the land, more than just a belief in hard work, but a belief that we enjoy the blessings of life when we live our lives with honesty and courage and surround ourselves with those whom we love. To all who mourn him today, but so thankful for all that he gave them in life, I offer my condolences. But my confidence that he will always live on, Bitzor Chaim, in the bond of life, as you tell his stories, as you live his ideals, and as you remember what a great and precious gift you had. May his memory be for a blessing. Amen. At this time, I'll ask you to please rise for the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, B'ma'alot Keroshim Utorim Kezor Akia, Mazirim Et Nishmat Yaakov Ben Chaim V'Shoshana, Shalach Le'olamo. Began Eden Day Menuchato An Abara Rachamim, Astireu B'Seiter Kerafecha Le'olamim. Utzor B'Tzor Chamim Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachlato, V'yanuach B'Shalom, Mishkavo V'Nomar. Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence. to the soul of Jarvis Franzblau Yaakov Ben Chaim V'Shoshana, who has gone to his eternal home. O God, remember and help us to remember the worthy and righteous deeds he performed. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life through our stories, through our emulation of his values and all he stood for. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, there will be no formal procession to the cemetery. Those of you planning on joining the family for the interment service at the cemetery, as the casket leaves the building, we would ask that you go directly to your cars, and we will all meet at the cemetery as soon as we all get there. Thank you.